The asteroid belt became a factory. Every rock that could hold a building now held workers. Every ship that could carry tools became a transport. The 15 surviving vessels floated among the asteroids while thousands of people worked on them. They cut metal. They welded joints. They installed new weapons. Sleep was a luxury no one could afford. Dr. Misun worked in a converted mining station that now served as a research lab. Around her lay pieces of Velkari technology: drones, weapons, shield generators, computer systems. Her team had 3 days to make them work with human ships. It should have been impossible. But she had learned something important. Fear made people work faster than they ever thought possible. The Velkari shields worked on a frequency rotation. Every few seconds they changed. This made them strong against sustained fire. But Dr. Misun found the weakness. The rotation had a pattern. If you knew the pattern, you could predict the next frequency. And if you could predict it, you could match it. For 1 millisecond, the shield would be transparent to your weapon. She took this information to Lieutenant Hye-won. He was 26 years old, a genius with computers. He never smiled and rarely spoke. But when given a problem, he could solve it faster than anyone. Dr. Misun gave him the shield patterns and asked if he could write a program to predict them. He looked at the data for 5 minutes. Then he said yes. For 30 hours straight, Hye-won wrote code. His fingers moved across the keyboard without stopping. He drank coffee and ate protein bars but never left his chair. When he finished, he had created an artificial intelligence that could predict Velkari shield frequencies and adjust human weapons in real time. The program needed testing, but there was no time. It would have to work in actual battle. Meanwhile, the weapons were changing. Human railguns were powerful but slow. Velkari energy cores were fast but weak. Dr. Misun's team combined them. They took human railguns and added alien power sources. The result was a weapon that fired solid projectiles at speeds the Velkari shields could not react to. The projectiles would punch through the shields before they adapted. Captain Daejung supervised the installation of these new weapons on the Indomitable. The ship was his home, and watching it change felt strange. New guns replaced old ones. Alien technology filled the corridors. The ship's computer now spoke with a Velkari interface that had been reprogrammed. It was still the Indomitable, but barely. Commander Jae-won arrived at the asteroid belt on the second day. He was 29 years old and led humanity's best special forces team. 50 soldiers, each one trained in zero-gravity combat. They brought something important: 3 Velkari combat suits, recovered from destroyed drones. The suits were powerful with built-in weapons and enhanced strength. Jae-won's team studied them carefully. Admiral Hyun-woo gathered his captains for a meeting. 15 people stood in a circle on his command ship. They looked tired. Many had lost friends in the first battle. All of them knew they would probably die in the next one, but they were here. They had not given up. Hyun-woo explained the plan. The Velkari were sending 150 ships to hunt them. Those ships would enter the asteroid belt in 12 hours. But the asteroids were humanity's advantage. Velkari ships were large and moved in formations. They were not built for the chaos of an asteroid field. Human ships were smaller and more agile. They could hide among the rocks and attack from ambush. The plan had 3 parts. First, hide among the asteroids and wait. Second, attack when the enemy was deep in the field and separated. Third, board and capture as many Velkari ships as possible. They needed those ships. They needed the technology. Most importantly, they needed to even the odds. One captain asked the obvious question. "How do you board a ship in the middle of a battle?" Commander Jae-won answered. "You ram it. You breach the hull. You fight your way inside." It was a terrible plan. Many would die. But it might work. The work continued. Every ship received the new weapons in Hye-won's targeting program. Soldiers trained in the captured Velkari suits. They learned how to move in them, how to fight in them. The suits were not perfect fits for human bodies, but they worked well enough. With these suits, humans could match Velkari strength. On Earth, the Velkari prepared for their victory. They built more bases. They processed more humans. Some humans were taken to work in mines. Others were taken for study. Many simply disappeared. The resistance fighters struck back whenever they could. They blew up transport vehicles, they attacked small patrols. They made the Velkari pay for every street. Overlord. Thexval grew more annoyed each day. These humans should have broken by now. Every other species he conquered had accepted their fate within weeks. But humans kept fighting. He ordered stronger patrols, more executions, public displays of Velkari power. Nothing worked. The resistance only grew stronger. In the asteroid belt, the 12 hours passed quickly. The Velkari fleet arrived right on schedule. 150 massive ships entered the field in a perfect formation. They moved slowly, carefully, scanning for the human vessels. Their sensors were powerful. They would find the humans eventually. But Admiral Hyunwoo had a trick. The asteroids contained high amounts of metal. This metal interfered with scans. The human ships powered down their engines and drifted among the rocks, silent and invisible. They waited. Patience was hard but necessary. The Velkari had to come deeper into the field. 2 hours passed. The Velkari fleet spread out, searching different areas. Their tight formation broke apart. Ships moved through narrow gaps between asteroids. They were still powerful, still dangerous. But now they were separated. Now they were vulnerable. Admiral Hyunwoo watched his display. The Velkari ships were marked as red dots. His ships were blue. He waited until the enemy was fully committed. Then he gave the order. Attack. 15 human ships roared to life. Engines ignited, weapons charged. They burst from hiding spots among the asteroids and fell upon the nearest Velkari vessels. The new railguns fired. Projectiles crossed space in seconds. The Velkari shields flickered and failed. Haewon's program worked perfectly. The projectiles punched through hulls. Alien ships exploded. The Velkari tried to respond, but they were scattered and confused. Human ships moved like hunters, striking fast and disappearing behind asteroids. Captain Dae-jung led the Indomitable in a wild attack on a Velkari cruiser. His new weapons tore into the enemy hull. The cruiser tried to turn its massive guns on him, but Dae-jung flew between asteroids, using them as shields. Within 10 minutes, 23 Velkari ships were crippled or destroyed. The others tried to regroup, but the asteroids made formation impossible. Every time they gathered, human ships appeared from different directions. The Velkari were strong, but strength meant nothing when you could not see your enemy. Then came the most dangerous part. Commander Jaewon's boarding teams launched. Small shuttles flew from human ships toward damaged Velkari vessels. The Velkari tried to shoot them down, but the shuttles were fast and small. Most made it through. They attached to alien hulls. Cutting torches burned through metal. Airlocks were breached. Jaewon led his team into the first Velkari ship. They wore the captured suits and carried human weapons modified to work in alien environments. Inside the Velkari ship, gravity was different. The air smelled strange. Everything was built for creatures larger than humans. But the team moved quickly. The Velkari crew fought back. They were bigger and stronger than humans, but they had never fought inside their own ships before. They were not trained for boarding actions. Jaewon's team used speed and surprise. They threw grenades into corridors. They shot from cover. They moved like shadows through the alien vessel. The fighting was brutal. Humans died. Velkari died. Blood from both species mixed on the metal floors. But slowly, room by room, Jaewon's team pushed toward the bridge. When they finally reached it, only 12 humans remained from the original 20. But they had won. The Velkari ship was theirs. Across the asteroid field, other boarding teams achieved similar victories. By the time the battle ended 6 hours later, the result was clear. Of the 150 Velkari ships, 67 managed to escape. The rest were destroyed or captured. 18 Velkari vessels were taken intact. Humanity suddenly had real warships. Overlord Thexval received news of the defeat in his command ship above Earth. He stared at the reports in disbelief. How was this possible? These humans were primitives. They had lost the first battle in minutes. Now they had destroyed half his pursuit fleet and captured his technology. For the first time since the invasion began, Thexval felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. Admiral Hyunwoo stood among the wreckage of the asteroid field. His fleet had taken losses. 4 ships destroyed, 3 badly damaged, but they had 18 Valkyrie vessels now. He ordered Dr. Misun to begin immediately. She had to make those alien ships work with human crews. She had to do it in 2 days. Dr. Misun looked at the captured ships and felt exhausted. She had not slept in 4 days, but she nodded. 2 days. She could do it. She had to. Because in 3 days, the fleet would move toward Earth. The real battle. The captured Valkyrie ships floated in space like prizes of war. Dr. Misun stood on the bridge of one, looking at controls designed for alien hands. The symbols made no sense. The buttons were too large. The chairs were built for creatures twice her size. She had 48 hours to make this ship fly with a human crew. Her team worked frantically. They connected human computers to alien systems. They rewired controls. They built new seats. Lieutenant Haewon created translation software that turned Valkyrie text into simple diagrams humans could understand. It was rough, imperfect, but it worked. After 2 days of constant effort, the captured ships came online with human crews. Admiral Hyunwoo now commanded 33 vessels. 15 human ships upgraded with alien technology. 18 captured Valkyrie warships with human crews. It was still not enough to match the 150 Valkyrie ships defending Earth, but it was better than 15. Much better. He called a meeting with all his captains. They gathered in virtual space, each one appearing on screens from their own ships. Hyunwoo looked at their faces. These people had survived impossible battles. They had adapted faster than anyone thought possible. They had earned the right to know his full plan. The plan was simple but dangerous. The fleet would not approach Earth directly. Instead, they would use the captured ships to trick the Valkyrie. The alien vessels would broadcast false signals, pretending to be part of the original Valkyrie fleet returning from the asteroid belt. This would let them get close before the enemy realized the truth. Close enough to attack before the Valkyrie could organize a proper defense. Captain Dae-jung smiled when he heard this. It was a clever trick. Risky but clever. The other captains agreed. They had learned an important lesson. In war against a stronger enemy, deception was as valuable as weapons. The meeting ended. The fleet prepared to move. On Earth, the Resistance received a coded message from Admiral Hyunwoo. 3 words. We are coming. Every Resistance cell activated their plans. They gathered weapons. They identified targets. They prepared for the biggest fight of their lives. When the fleet arrived, Earth would rise up from within. Overlord Thexval paced in his command center. His surviving ships from the asteroid field had returned with reports that disturbed him. The humans had technology they should not have. They fought with tactics the Valkyrie had never seen. Most concerning, they had captured 18 ships. Thexval knew what that meant. The humans would study those ships. They would learn. They would adapt. He ordered his fleet into a defensive formation around Earth. Every ship was positioned with overlapping fields of fire. Sensors scanned constantly for approaching enemies. Patrols flew regular routes. The defense was strong, but Thexval could not shake a growing feeling. These humans were dangerous in a way other species were not. They did not accept defeat. They learned from every battle. The human fleet jumped into the solar system 3 days later. They appeared in multiple locations at once using the quantum drives from captured ships. The Valkyrie sensors detected them immediately. But the signals confused the Valkyrie computers. Some ships registered as friendly Valkyrie vessels. Others registered as human. The identification system could not decide. This confusion lasted only minutes, but minutes were enough. The human fleet closed the distance before the Valkyrie realized they were all enemies. By the time Overlord Thexval understood the trick, human ships were already among his defensive formation. The battle began at point-blank range. Space around Earth erupted in fire and light. Human railguns tore through Valkyrie shields. The captured alien ships fought alongside human vessels, creating chaos in the Valkyrie ranks. The enemy could not tell friend from foe until weapons started firing. By then it was too late for many of them. Captain Dae-jung brought the Indomitable screaming past Earth's moon. 3 Valkyrie ships tried to intercept him. He led them on a chase through the lunar orbit. using the moon's gravity to slingshot around. His gunners fired constantly. One Valkyrie ship exploded, another lost its engines and drifted away. The third broke off pursuit. All across Earth's orbit the battle raged. Human ships moved unpredictably, breaking every rule of traditional space combat. They accelerated hard, then stopped suddenly. They spun and fired backward. They used debris as shields. The Valkyrie fought with discipline and coordination, but their tactics were designed for organized battles. This was chaos. On Earth, the resistance rose up. In every occupied city, fighters emerged from hiding. They attacked Valkyrie patrols. They destroyed supply depots. They blew up communication towers. The Valkyrie troops on the ground suddenly found themselves fighting on two fronts. From orbit and from the streets, Commander J1 led his team on a critical mission. They flew down from orbit and captured Valkyrie shuttles. Their target was a shield generator protecting the main Valkyrie base in New York. If they destroyed it, Admiral Hyunwoo's ships could bombard the base from space. The mission was nearly impossible. J1 took his 50 best soldiers anyway. They landed under heavy fire. The Valkyrie knew the shield generator was important and defended it with hundreds of troops. J1's team fought through the streets using buildings as cover. The Valkyrie were strong and well-armed, but humans knew how to fight in cities. Every corner was a trap. Every window held a sniper. J1 reached the generator with only 20 soldiers remaining. The building was heavily fortified. His team planted charges on the supports while fighting off waves of Valkyrie defenders. When the charges detonated, the entire structure collapsed. The shield flickered and died. From orbit, human ships immediately targeted the exposed base. Blue beams fell from the sky, but this time they were human weapons. The Valkyrie base vanished in fire. Back in space, the battle reached its climax. Admiral Hyunwoo had been patient, letting his captains engage the enemy while he positioned his command ship carefully. Now he saw his opportunity. A group of 10 Valkyrie ships had clustered together, trying to create a strong defensive position. But they had left their rear exposed. Hyunwoo brought his ship and 5 others through the gap. They fell upon the Valkyrie from behind. At close range, even Valkyrie shields failed against concentrated fire. The 10 ships died in minutes. This created a hole in the enemy formation. Human ships poured through, splitting the Valkyrie fleet in two. Overlord Thexval watched his defense collapse from his command ship, the Dominus. He had lost 40 ships already. His formation was broken. Human vessels were everywhere. How had this happened? His species had conquered 47 worlds. They were the strongest power in this region of space. Yet these humans, these primitives, were beating him. He made a decision born of rage and wounded pride. He would kill the human leader himself. The Dominus was the most powerful ship in the Valkyrie fleet. Its weapons could destroy planets. Thexval locked his sensors on the human command ship and charged forward. He would end this personally. Captain Daejung saw the Dominus moving toward Admiral Hyunwoo's position. He knew what it meant. The enemy leader was making a direct challenge. Daejung did not hesitate. He turned the Indomitable hard and accelerated to intercept. His crew protested. The Dominus was 3 times their size. Its shields were stronger. Its weapons more powerful. Fighting it directly was suicide. Daejung ignored them. Sometimes battles were not won by logic. Sometimes they were won by courage. The Indomitable crossed in front of the Dominus, blocking its path to the command ship. The 2 vessels opened fire on each other at the same moment. The exchange was devastating. The Dominus weapons tore through the Indomitable's hull. Explosions ripped through the human ship. Half the crew died in the first minute. But the Indomitable did not run. It did not surrender. It kept firing. Every weapon blazed. Railguns, missiles, lasers, everything. The Dominus shields held, but they weakened under the constant assault. Then Captain Daejung did something insane. He rammed the Dominus. The Indomitable, engines screaming, crashed directly into the Valkyrie flagship. Both ships shuddered from the impact. Hulls tore open. The Indomitable lodged itself in the Dominus like a knife in flesh. Both vessels were now crippled, locked together. Commander J1 had just returned to orbit when he received Daejung's transmission. The captain's voice was calm despite the chaos. He had created an opening directly into the Dominus. J1's team could board, but they had to come now before the Valkyrie sealed the breach. J1 looked at his exhausted team. They had fought through hell on Earth's surface. Now they had to do it again in space. No one complained. They boarded shuttles and launched toward the merged ships. Within minutes, they crossed the gap and entered the Dominus through the wound the Indomitable had created. Inside the Valkyrie flagship, the fighting was fierce. Overlord Thexval had his best troops with him. They were elite warriors, each one a veteran of dozens of battles. But they had never fought humans before. They did not understand human desperation. They did not understand human fury. Commander J1 led his team toward the bridge. Behind them, the battle in space continued. Around them, 2 dying ships groaned and sparked. Ahead of them, the Valkyrie Overlord waited. The outcome of the entire war might depend on the next few minutes. The corridors of the Dominus were built for giants. Every doorway stood 3 meters tall. Every hallway stretched wide enough for 4 Valkyrie soldiers to walk side by side. Commander J1 and his team moved through this alien architecture like ghosts, quick and careful. They had 20 soldiers left. Behind them, the breach into the ship was already being defended by more of Daijung's surviving crew. The Valkyrie troops came at them in waves. They were disciplined, moving in tight formations with overlapping fire. But the corridors of their own ship worked against them. J1's team used grenades to collapse passages. They fired from around corners. They set traps with captured Valkyrie explosives. Every meter was bought with blood from both sides. Above them, in the command center, Overlord Thexval watched security feeds. He saw these humans fighting through his ship. They were small, weak creatures compared to his kind, yet they moved with a violence that shocked him. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. When wounded, they kept fighting. When outnumbered, they attacked anyway. What kind of species was this? Thexval activated his personal guard, 20 of the finest warriors the Valkyrie Dominion had ever produced. Each one wore armor twice as thick as normal. Each one carried weapons that could punch through ship hulls. They marched down to stop the humans. Thexval was confident, 20 elite guards against 20 exhausted humans. The outcome was certain, but Commander J1 had not survived dozens of battles by being predictable. When his sensors detected the elite guards approaching, he did not face them directly. Instead, he led his team into the ship's ventilation system. The passages were narrow, designed for maintenance drones. Valkyrie soldiers could not follow, but humans could. They crawled through the dark passages following maps Lieutenant Haywan had created from captured data. The path was long and difficult. Some passages were so narrow they had to remove their armor to fit, but eventually they emerged 3 decks above where the elite guards waited. They were now between the guards and the bridge. J1 placed shaped charges on the floor beneath them. When they detonated, the explosion blew a hole through 2 decks. His team dropped through, landing directly on top of confused Valkyrie defenders. The surprise attack was devastating. Half the guards died in the first seconds, killed by falling debris and human weapons firing from above. The remaining guards fought with desperate fury. These were not ordinary soldiers. Their armor absorbed shots that would kill normal troops. Their strength let them throw humans across rooms. In close combat, they were nearly unstoppable. J1 watched 3 of his soldiers die trying to bring down a single guard, but humans adapted. They stopped trying to fight fair. 2 soldiers would distract a guard while a third planted explosives on its back. They used the environment, collapsing walls to crush enemies. They fought dirty, striking joints and weak points in the armor. Slowly, the elite guards fell. Outside the Dominus, the space battle continued. Admiral Hyunwoo coordinated the fleet from his command ship. The Valkyrie were tough opponents even in defeat. They fought in organized retreats covering each other, but human ships pressed them relentlessly. Captured Valkyrie vessels proved especially effective, as their weapons and shields matched the enemy perfectly. Captain Daijung sat on what remained of the Indomitable's bridge. The ship was dying around him. Life support failed in multiple sections. The hull had breaches in 6 places, but his gun still worked. His crew still fought. As long as the Indomitable could fire, it would support the boarding team. That was all that mattered now. Commander J1 reached the final passage to the bridge. His team was down to 12 soldiers. All were wounded. Most were running low on ammunition, but the bridge door stood ahead. Inside, Overlord Thexval waited with his final defenders. J1 checked his weapon one last time. Then he blew the door. The Dominus bridge was enormous, designed to show the power and authority of the Valkyrie. Thexval stood in the center, twice the height of any human. His armor was black and gold, marked with symbols of conquest. In his hands he held a weapon that glowed with contained energy. Around him stood 10 officers, each one armed and ready. The battle was short and brutal. Human soldiers poured through the destroyed door, firing as they moved. Velkari officers returned fire with deadly accuracy. Bodies fell on both sides. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Through it all, Commander J1 moved toward Overlord Thexval. They met in the center of the bridge. Thexval looked down at the human before him. This small creature had fought through his entire ship. It had killed his best troops. It now stood before him, bleeding from multiple wounds, barely able to stand. Yet it still raised its weapon. Thexval almost felt respect. He fired first. The energy blast should have vaporized J1. But the human dove aside with speed that surprised the Overlord. J1's return fire struck Thexval's armor, scorching it but not penetrating. The Overlord laughed. This would be an execution, not a fight. But J1 did not fight alone. 3 soldiers emerged from the smoke and attacked from different angles. Their weapons focused on the joints of Thexval's armor, the weak points. The Overlord swung his massive arms, striking one soldier and sending her flying across the bridge. But the other 2 kept firing. Thexval's armor began to fail. Warning lights flashed inside his helmet. These humans had studied Velkari equipment. They knew exactly where to strike. He killed another soldier with a point-blank shot. But there were always more. They swarmed him like insects, too many to kill, too persistent to escape. Commander J1 saw his opening. While Thexval was focused on other threats, J1 ran forward and jumped. He landed on the Overlord's back and jammed his last grenade into the armor joint at the neck. Then he jumped away. The explosion was contained by the armor, but it channeled directly into the suit. Thexval staggered. The Overlord fell to his knees. His armor was breached. Blood, red like human blood but darker, flowed from the wound. He looked up at J1 with eyes that finally understood. These humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were dangerous in a way his species had never encountered. They fought not with superior technology, but with absolute determination. Overlord Thexval died on the bridge of his own flagship, surrounded by enemies he had underestimated. His last thought was a warning he would never deliver. Do not fight the humans. They do not know how to surrender. Commander J1 collapsed next to the body. He had 6 different wounds and could barely breathe. Around him, 7 soldiers remained standing from his original team of 50. But they had done it. The Dominus was theirs. He activated his communicator with shaking hands and spoke 3 words. Bridge secured, sir. Admiral Hyunwoo received the message on his command ship. He immediately broadcast it to the entire fleet. The enemy leader was dead. The flagship was captured. Resistance crumbled across the Velkari fleet. Ships that had been fighting desperately began to signal surrender. Others fled toward the outer system. The battle for Earth was won. On Earth's surface, the news spread through the resistance networks. People emerged from shelters and hiding places. They saw the Velkari ships retreating or hanging dead in orbit. They saw human vessels everywhere, victorious. The occupation was over. Earth was free, but the celebrations were muted. Every city bore scars of the occupation. Millions had died. Families were destroyed. The world had changed in ways that could never be undone. In Seoul, in New York, in Beijing, in every city, people looked at the sky and felt relief mixed with grief. Captain Daejung ordered his crew to abandon the Indomitable. The ship had given everything. It had rammed an enemy flagship and lived long enough to see victory. Now it could rest. His crew evacuated to other vessels. Daejung was the last to leave. He stood on the ruined bridge one final time, saluting the ship that had carried them through hell. Admiral Hyunwoo began counting the cost. Of the 33 ships that attacked Earth, 19 remained operational. The human casualties were heavy. Thousands of soldiers dead, dozens of ships destroyed. But they had freed Earth. They had defeated an invasion force that should have been unstoppable. Then Dr. Misun brought him news that killed any celebration. She had interrogated surviving Velkari officers. The fleet that attacked Earth was just an expeditionary force. The main Velkari armada was still coming. 800 ships. They would arrive in 18 days. Earth had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Hyunwoo looked at the data. 800 ships against 19. The numbers were impossible. Earth could not win a defensive battle against such odds. They had one advantage: surprise. The Velkari main fleet did not know their expeditionary force was destroyed. They did not know humans now possessed Velkari technology. In that moment, Admiral Hyunwoo made the boldest decision of the war. Earth would not wait to be attacked again. They would take the fight to the enemy. They would strike the Velkari homeworld before the reinforcements arrived. It was insane. It was suicidal. But it was the only way humanity could survive. The ruins of Seoul stretched beneath Admiral Hyunwoo's feet. He stood on a hill that once held a beautiful park. Now it was just broken concrete and dead trees. The Velkari occupation had lasted only weeks, but the scars would remain for generations. 200 million humans dead. Dozens of cities in ruins. The world had changed forever. He turned away from the view and entered the command bunker. Inside, his senior officers waited. Captain Dae-jung, now without a ship after the Indomitable's destruction. Dr. Mi-sun, exhausted from days of interrogating Velkari prisoners. Lieutenant Hae-won, already working on tactical simulations. Commander Jae-won, recovering from his wounds but refusing to rest. Hyunwoo activated the holographic display. It showed the Velkari home system, located 60 light-years from Earth. Intelligence from captured computers revealed everything. The system held the Velkari homeworld in 4 major shipyards. 800 warships were being prepared for the journey to Earth. They would depart in 15 days. The situation was clear. If those ships reached Earth, humanity would lose. The captured Velkari vessels gave humans better weapons, but not enough. 800 ships against 19 was still impossible odds. There was only one solution. Strike first. Dr. Mi-sun presented her latest work. She had been studying Velkari quantum drive technology and stellar manipulation systems. The Velkari could affect stars, using them as power sources for their larger vessels. But Mi-sun had discovered something they never tried. If you destabilized a star in a specific way, it would not explode immediately. Instead, it would begin a chain reaction that would take weeks. But once started, the reaction could not be stopped. She had built a weapon based on this principle. A quantum resonance bomb. Place it near a star, activate it, and that star would die. It would take 30 days, giving anyone in the system time to evacuate. But it would be unstoppable. The weapon was ready. The question was whether they would use it. The room was silent. What Dr. Mi-sun proposed was holding an entire system hostage. Billions of Velkari civilians lived in their home system. Using this weapon meant threatening them all. It was a terrible choice. But Commander Jae-won broke the silence. The Velkari killed 200 million of us without hesitation. They would have killed everyone if we had not stopped them. We do what we must to survive. Admiral Hyunwoo looked at each officer. Captain Dae-jung nodded. Lieutenant Hae-won showed no expression but did not object. They all understood. This was no longer about honor or fair fighting. This was about survival. Humanity would cross any line to ensure their species continued. The decision was made. For 12 days, Earth prepared. Every captured Velkari ship was repaired and crewed. Human volunteers trained on alien systems day and night. The fleet that would strike the Velkari homeworld took shape. 19 ships, half human design and half captured alien vessels. It was not a large force, but it would have to be enough. Captain Dae-jung received command of one of the captured Velkari cruisers. It felt strange to command an alien ship, but it was more powerful than any human vessel. His new crew worked hard to master the controls. By the time the fleet was ready to depart, they could fly and fight the ship adequately. That would have to be good enough. The plan was audacious. The fleet would jump directly into the Velkari home system using captured quantum drives. They would transmit Velkari identification codes, pretending to be ships returning from distant patrols. This would get them through the outer defenses. Once inside, they would strike fast and hard at the shipyards where the invasion fleet was gathering. The quantum resonance bomb would be placed near the system's star. Admiral Hyunwoo would then broadcast a message to the Velkari High Command. Stop the invasion. Withdraw from all conquered territories, or watch your son die. Lieutenant Hae-won calculated they had a 3% chance of succeeding. Everyone agreed those were good odds compared to waiting for 800 ships to attack Earth. On the day of departure, people gathered to watch the fleet leave. There were no celebrations, no cheering crowds. Everyone knew this was a desperate gamble. Most of these ships would probably not return, but they were humanity's only hope. The 19 vessels rose from Earth and its orbital stations, formed into a tight formation, and vanished in flashes of light as their quantum drives activated. The journey took 6 hours through quantum space. When the fleet emerged, they found themselves at the edge of the Velkari home system. Before them lay a sight that took breath away. 2 planets, both inhabited, hundreds of space stations, massive shipyards, each one larger than Earth's moon, and everywhere ships. The Velkari had built their civilization over thousands of years. It was magnificent and terrible. Admiral Hyunwoo broadcast the captured identification codes. Velkari defense networks scanned the incoming fleet. The codes were valid. The ships appeared legitimate. Defense platforms held their fire. The human fleet moved deeper into the system, heading toward the primary shipyard. No one questioned them. No one suspected the truth. They got within weapons range of the shipyard before someone finally realized something was wrong. A Velkari officer noticed that several ships were broadcasting codes from vessels known to be destroyed at Earth. By the time the warning went out, it was too late. The human fleet opened fire. 19 ships attacked the largest military shipyard in the Velkari Dominion. They fired every weapon at once. Missiles, railguns, energy beams, everything. The shipyard was not designed for combat. It was built for construction. Its shields were weak. Sections of it exploded immediately. Ships under construction tore away from their moorings. Workers died by the thousands. The Velkari fleet scrambled to respond. Hundreds of ships began moving toward the attack. But they were scattered across the system. It would take time for them to gather. Time Admiral Hyunwoo used ruthlessly. His fleet broke into 3 groups and attacked different targets. Orbital defense platforms, communication stations, fleet command centers. The attacks were brutal and efficient. Captain Daijung led his group against a formation of 30 Velkari patrol ships. These ships were smaller than capital vessels, but still dangerous. The battle was fierce. Human ships took heavy damage, but they had the advantage of surprise and aggression. Velkari crews had not fought in their home system for centuries. They were not prepared for enemies who attacked with such fury. While the battles raged, Commander Jae-won flew a small shuttle toward the system's star. With him were 2 engineers and Dr. Mi-sun's quantum resonance bomb. The flight took 2 hours. Defense systems tried to intercept them, but Lieutenant Hae-won hacked into Velkari networks and created false sensor readings. The shuttle appeared to be a maintenance vessel. They reached the star's corona without being stopped. Jae-won activated the bomb and launched it into the star. It would take time to penetrate to the core, but once there, the quantum reaction would begin. The star would have 30 days before collapse, more than enough time to evacuate the system, but not enough time to stop the invasion of Earth and then evacuate. The Velkari would have to choose. Admiral Hyunwoo broadcast his message on all Velkari frequencies. He identified himself as the commander of the human fleet. He explained what had been done to their star. He gave them a choice: immediate cessation of all hostilities, withdrawal from all occupied systems, release of all conquered species, or they could continue the war and lose their homeworld. The Velkari High Command received the message in their capital. They immediately consulted their scientists. Could humans actually have such a weapon? The scientists studied the star's readings. The data was clear. A quantum resonance reaction had begun. In 30 days, their sun would die. Everything in the system would have to be evacuated. It was not a bluff. For 3 hours, the Velkari leadership debated. Some wanted to attack immediately, destroy the human ships even if it meant their own death. Others argued for evacuation and a later counterstrike. But the moderates made a compelling argument. Humanity had proven itself dangerous beyond prediction. They had defeated 2 Velkari fleets. They had struck the homeworld. They clearly possessed weapons the Dominion did not understand. Perhaps it was time to negotiate. The response came as a transmission to Admiral Hyunwoo. The Velkari High Council agreed to terms: immediate withdrawal from Earth and all occupied territories, release of 47 conquered species, a formal treaty of non-aggression with humanity. In exchange, humans would deactivate the weapon and help evacuate the Velkari system. But Hyunwoo's response surprised everyone. The weapon could not be deactivated. Dr. Mi-sun had designed it that way intentionally. Once started, the quantum reaction was irreversible. The Velkari system would have to be evacuated. However, humanity would provide assistance. Human ships and technology would help move the Velkari population to other systems. It was the least they could do. The war ended not with a final battle but with a treaty. The Velkari Dominion began the largest evacuation in their history. Human ships worked alongside Velkari vessels to move billions of people to other systems. It was strange to work with the enemy, but both species recognized they had pushed each other to the brink. Continuing would mean mutual destruction. 6 months later, Admiral Hunwoo retired to a small house in the Korean countryside. The alarm started at midnight. Dr. Yoon sat up in his bed at the SETI Research Center in California. His computer screen flashed red. For 30 years he had been searching for alien signals. Tonight he found one. The signal came from the edge of the solar system. It was not natural. It was not random. It was a message repeating over and over. Within 2 hours, every space agency on Earth was awake. Within 4 hours, the telescopes turned toward the signal source. What they saw made the world stop breathing. Massive ships appeared in space. They were huge, larger than anything humans had ever built. 300 vessels hung in the darkness beyond Neptune. They did not hide. They did not communicate. They simply waited. Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the command center of the United Earth Defense Station. He was 52 years old with gray hair and calm eyes. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 10 years ago. He knew war. But this was different. This was not human against human. This was humanity against something unknown. The alien message came 12 hours after their arrival. Every screen on Earth showed the same thing. A creature appeared, tall and covered in dark armor. Its face was hard to see, but its eyes glowed red. When it spoke, computers translated the words into every human language. The message was simple. The creature called itself Overlord Thexval of the Velkari Dominion. It said Earth belonged to them now. Humans had 72 hours to surrender. If they refused, the Velkari would destroy every city, every station, every ship. The message ended. The alien face disappeared. The world leaders gathered in an emergency meeting. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to surrender. They argued for hours. Admiral Hyunwoo listened but said nothing. Finally, the decision came. Earth would not surrender. They would fight. Hyunwoo gathered every military ship humanity had. 47 vessels. Some were warships built for fighting pirates. Some were mining ships with weapons attached. Some were transport ships carrying soldiers. It was not much, but it was everything Earth had. Captain Dae-Jung commanded one of these ships, the EDS Indomitable. He was 38 years old, a former test pilot with quick reflexes and a confident smile. His crew loved him because he never gave up. Even now, facing impossible odds, he stood on his bridge and prepared for battle. The 72 hours passed. The Velkari fleet moved toward Earth. They came slowly in perfect formation. Admiral Hyunwoo ordered the human fleet to form a defensive line between the aliens and Earth. His ships spread out, trying to cover as much space as possible. The battle began without warning. Blue beams of light shot from the Velkari ships. They moved faster than missiles. When they hit human ships, the metal melted. Hulls tore apart. People died in seconds. The human fleet fired back with everything they had. Missiles, railguns, lasers. Nothing worked. Blue shields appeared around the alien ships. Every human weapon bounced off or exploded harmlessly. Captain Dae-Jung watched 3 ships die in the first minute. He ordered his weapons officer to fire at the same Velkari ship with everything they had. The Indomitable's guns roared. Missiles streaked through space. The alien shield glowed bright blue. Then it faded. The weapons struck the alien hull, but the damage was small. The Velkari ship turned its weapons on the Indomitable. Dae-Jung threw his ship into a hard turn. The blue beam missed by meters. He could feel the heat through the hull. Another beam came. This one hit. The Indomitable's rear section exploded. 20 crew members died instantly. The ship spun out of control. All around Earth, the battle raged. Human ships fought desperately. They rammed alien vessels. They detonated nuclear weapons at point-blank range. Some alien ships took damage. A few even died. But for every Velkari ship destroyed, Earth lost 10. Admiral Hyunwoo watched the battle from his command center. His face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the rail tight. The numbers on his screen told a terrible story. 32 human ships destroyed. 18 minutes of battle. Only 3 Velkari ships damaged. This was not a battle. This was a massacre. He made the hardest decision of his life. He opened the fleet-wide channel and spoke one word: retreat. Some captains argued. Some refused, but most obeyed. The surviving human ships broke formation and ran. They fled toward the asteroid belt, toward the outer system, anywhere away from the Velkari. The Velkari did not chase them. Why would they? The human fleet was broken. Earth was defenseless. Overlord Thexval watched the humans flee and felt satisfaction. Another primitive world conquered. Another easy victory. He ordered his ships to take position around Earth and begin the occupation. On Earth, people watched the sky turn dark with alien ships. The bombardment began an hour after the retreat. Military bases exploded. Command centers vanished in blue fire. Cities felt the ground shake as orbital strikes hit near them. Millions died in the first day, but in a secret laboratory beneath Sol, something important happened. Dr. Mi-sun stood over pieces of a destroyed Velkari drone. She was 41 years old, a genius in alien technology. Her team had recovered this wreckage during the battle. Now she studied it with desperate focus. Her hands moved quickly, taking the drone apart piece by piece. The technology was advanced, far beyond human science. But it was not magic. It followed rules. Rules she could understand. After 6 hours of work, she found something interesting. The shield generator had a pattern. It rotated through different frequencies. And there was something else. A small delay, just milliseconds, between when the shield detected a threat and when it reacted. It was not much, but it was something. She sent her findings to Admiral Hyun Woo, who was hiding in the asteroid belt with the surviving fleet. 15 ships remained. 15 ships against 300. The message reached him in his quarters where he sat alone thinking. He read her report 3 times. Then Admiral Hyunwoo smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who saw a chance, no matter how small. He called his senior officers together and spoke for 2 hours. When the meeting ended, every captain knew the plan. It was desperate. It was dangerous. It might not work. But it was better than giving up. In the asteroid belt, humanity began to build. Mining stations became factories. Civilian ships became weapons. Every person worked 20 hours a day. They welded. They programmed. They tested. They had 30 days before the Velkari reinforcements arrived from their home system. 30 days to turn 15 broken ships into something that could fight back. Captain Dae-jung repaired the Indomitable. The damage was severe, but his crew worked miracles. As they fixed the ship, they also changed it. New weapons were installed. Different systems were added. The Indomitable would not look the same when it returned to battle. On Earth, the Velkari grew comfortable. They set up bases. They processed humans like cattle, sorting the useful from the useless. Resistance groups formed in every city. Humans fought back with stolen weapons and homemade bombs. The Velkari killed them easily. But more fighters always appeared. Humanity would not submit. Overlord Thexval sat in his command ship above Earth. He read reports of human resistance with annoyance. These creatures did not understand. They had lost. Why did they keep fighting? He decided to teach them a lesson. He chose a city at random, Tokyo, 2 million people. He ordered it destroyed from orbit. The blue beams fell from the sky. Tokyo burned. The city vanished in fire and smoke. When the attack ended, nothing remained but ash and broken buildings. 2 million people became 2 million graves. The Velkari broadcasted footage of the destruction to every human settlement. The message was clear. Resist and die. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Hyunwoo received footage of Tokyo's destruction. He watched it alone in his quarters. His face showed nothing, but inside rage burned hotter than any star. He called Dr. Mi-sun on a secure channel. He asked her one question. How long until the fleet was ready? She answered 27 days. He told her she had 3. The work intensified. People collapsed from exhaustion but kept working. Mistakes were made. People died in accidents. But the fleet took shape. The 15 ships became something new. They carried human weapons combined with stolen Velkari technology. They were not as strong as alien ships, but they were different. They were unexpected. 3 days later, Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his command ship. Around him floated 15 vessels, each one ready for battle. He opened a channel to Earth's resistance. The message was short. We are coming. When we arrive, fight. Give them no rest. Show them no mercy. Remember Tokyo. The fleet moved out of the asteroid belt. They did not fly toward Earth. Instead, they moved deeper into the system, broadcasting fake signals that suggested they were running away. Velkari scouts detected the signals. Overlord Thexval read the reports and felt contempt. The humans were cowards after all. He ordered half his fleet, 150 ships, to pursue and destroy the fleeing enemy. Admiral Hyunwoo watched the Velkari fleet divide and smiled again. The enemy had taken the bait. The trap was set. In 3 days, the Velkari would learn a terrible truth. Humanity was not running away. Humanity was choosing the battlefield,